Hi everyone, this is Tyler Martin, the host of the Friction Factor Fitness Podcast, the podcast that is dedicated to teaching busy people how to develop lifelong fitness habits and fit sustainable diet and exercise into their life. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe, and also please check out my website, frictionfactorfitness.com, for more information about my book, The Friction Factor, The Busy Person's Guide to Sustainable Diet and Exercise. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about something that many people struggle with, which is how to implement lifestyle changes that will improve their physical fitness. There are many reasons why this can be challenging. You may not know what to do to accomplish the changes that you're aiming for, or maybe you don't have the right methods to implement those changes. Or perhaps your busy lifestyle makes it too difficult to fit things like diet and exercise into your day-to-day schedule. Maybe your lifestyle isn't compatible with doing the right things. But in many cases, none of these are actually the primary problem. It's often the case that people have a good general idea of what they need to do to improve their physical fitness and overall health. And in many cases, they appear to have the available time in their schedule to fit some of these things in, but for some reason they still struggle to make long-term sustainable change. In many cases, there's something else making it difficult to change, and that is taking on too much change too quickly. Even when you know the requirements of living a healthier lifestyle, such as how to exercise or how to prepare a healthy meal, being consistent with all the right behaviors can be overwhelming if you're making multiple behavior changes or attempting to make multiple behavior changes all at once. Psychologically, we can only bear a certain amount of behavior change at one time. If you push yourself beyond your mental capacity for change, the difficulty of pushing yourself to do the right things consistently will become much more difficult, and it becomes hard in this situation to stay motivated over time. This phenomenon is a form of what I call friction, the inefficient use of time and energy. There are many different kinds of friction that can make diet and exercise difficult, but the type that we're going to talk about today is a type of mental or psychological friction associated with overwhelming yourself with too much change at one time. When you do this, you spread your motivational energy thin, which is a very bad strategy for making lifestyle change. So in the podcast, we'll talk about how to introduce healthier behavior patterns into your daily routine in a sustainable way. The first thing to understand is that transitioning to an active, healthier lifestyle isn't something that can or should happen overnight, because our cognitive capacity to implement new behaviors into a daily routine is limited. You have to prioritize the behavior changes that you want to make and implement them gradually and sequentially over time. Your end goal might be to make several healthy changes, such as implementing a full body workout program that works your major muscle groups 2 to 3 times a week, which is a great goal, tracking your exercise performance, eating a protein-rich, nutritious diet that's aligned with your fitness goals, tracking your daily calorie and macronutrient intake and making nutritional adjustments when you need to. Another goal could be tracking and monitoring your body composition regularly, so checking your weight and your body fat percentage, for instance. These are all great things that can and should be a part of a healthy lifestyle, but it's very difficult to begin, say, 5 new behavior protocols all at once, especially if you've never done any of these things before, if it's all brand new to you. This is the mistake that many people make every January when they set a New Year's resolution. They set the goal of living a healthier lifestyle. They try to do everything all at once. They encounter loads of psychological friction and they burn out, and ultimately they give up on their whole endeavor to improve their lifestyle in just a matter of weeks or months at best. And the cause of their failure is all of the mental friction that they're creating by taking on so much change all at the same time, taking on the change too quickly. So why is it so hard to make a lot of change? simultaneously? Why aren't we able to take on multiple new behavior patterns all at once? The simple answer is that implementing new behaviors requires mental effort, and your psychological bandwidth for making change is finite. Just like a car can only go so far on one tank of gas, your mind can only process a certain number of new behaviors at once. So each day, you have a certain amount of mental bandwidth to put towards building new routines and new habits. And when you spread that bandwidth too thin by dividing it amongst 5 or 10 new healthy routines, you push your mind beyond its limits. Taking this approach to behavior change makes the process more difficult than it needs to be. It's a high friction approach, and it usually fails because it's just not sustainable. You don't have the bandwidth to maintain that day over day. If you're new to living a healthy lifestyle, starting a new workout or a diet or a batch cooking protocol and a new stretching routine all at once is going to be very hard to stay motivated for, because you just don't have the mental capacity to take that all on at the same time. Let's talk about what you should do instead of taking on everything at once. Since you shouldn't make all your desired lifestyle changes at the same time, let's talk about how you can implement new fitness behaviors in a sustainable way. The key is to implement new behavior patterns as efficiently as possible. Instead of trying to make many new changes at once, it's much better to implement changes one at a time. Aim to do one new thing well instead of 10 new things poorly. This allows you to focus all of your motivational bandwidth, all of your capacity to exert effort on making a single change without losing any drive. This is the low friction approach to behavior change. The beauty of this approach is that if you consistently repeat one new behavior for a while, usually somewhere between 8 and 10 weeks, it will begin to feel much easier with repetition, and it won't require as much conscious effort. It will get incrementally easier each time you perform the behavior. And very soon it will become a habit or routine that you really don't have to put much thought into. You can say that it, in a sense, goes on autopilot. And after automating one healthy behavior, then you'll be able to introduce a new behavior at that point, because you'll have freed up your mental resources to take on another change. This is the basic formula for making long-term lifestyle change. Add a new behavior pattern one at a time. Be consistent with it. Once it starts to feel easy and automatic through repetition and consistency, then you're ready to add on or layer on another behavior change in addition to the first one. And you can keep repeating that pattern until you've added in all the behaviors that you want to make a part of your lifestyle. For instance, let's say eventually you want to make a whole slew of healthy behaviors part of your normal routine. You want to exercise and eat healthy and stretch and maybe even meditate. That's a great long-term goal to have, to make all of those behavior patterns part of your day-to-day life, but you shouldn't try to start them all on January 1st. If you do, you're going to burn out and probably give up on the whole endeavor. Instead, you could start by committing 15 to 20 minutes a day on, let's say, exercising at home. Let's assume that you focus on exercise as the first thing that you want to change. You'd stick with doing exercise for several weeks, and after a while, it would start to feel like a normal part of your day, something that you don't have to put a lot of effort into initiating. Once exercising started to feel like part of your normal routine, you'd then be ready to add another healthy behavior into your new lifestyle, into your new protocol, because exercise would in effect be now on autopilot. And this approach to lifestyle change does take time, but it systematically allows you to make behavior change that is actually going to last and be sustainable. And at any point during the process, if you are feeling overwhelmed or like you aren't able to handle what you've taken on, you can always stop or dial back the commitment level to whatever is manageable for you and stay at that level until things start to feel easier, and then you can make progress and progress forward. The key is to keep the change manageable and bearable so that your lifestyle can stay sustainable. Another big tip for making behavior change sustainable is to leverage a technique that I call anchoring, which means to add a new behavior onto an existing behavior pattern to make it easier to adopt. This is sometimes referred to as behavior stacking. For instance, if you, let's say, have a habit of getting up every morning and setting up your coffee pot to begin brewing, if you wanted to make exercise part of your lifestyle, you could anchor a short daily workout to your existing habit of setting up your coffee to brew. If you have a set of resistance bands or some free weights at home, you could do, let's say, 3 sets of 10 repetitions of 2 to 3 different exercises, and along with maybe some stationary cardio right there after you've started heating up your coffee pot. And 15 minutes later, your coffee will be brewed and your short interval workout will be completed for the day. Anchoring is an effective strategy for behavior change because it leverages the way that we learn behaviors and build habits. Every habit and routine that you engage in has a cue and a procedure. Think of cues as a triggering event that subconsciously reminds you to start a chain or pattern of behavior. For instance, seeing the coffee pot on the counter every morning after you get up is a subtle cue that reminds you to start the procedure of brewing coffee. Each behavior pattern also has a specific procedure, a series of actions that you do in a particular sequence to achieve a certain result. For example, when preparing coffee, you heat the water, you put a filter in the brewer, you measure out the grounds, you put the grounds into the filter, and finally you press the button to begin brewing coffee in your machine. Every behavior that requires more than one step has a required set of procedures, and our brains are surprisingly good at memorizing these steps. It uses a cognitive mechanism that's sometimes called procedural memory, and it's your procedural memory that allows you to remember all the individual steps of every complex task that you have to go through, from tying your shoes to brewing your coffee to how to drive to work. Through consistency and repetition, you can ingrain new behavior patterns like exercise or sticking to a meal plan into your procedural memory so that you can perform the desired behaviors without much thought because you've memorized each step to follow. When you use anchoring, essentially you're taking a new procedure, such as an exercise routine, and building it on top of an existing habit. You anchor the new routine to an old habit. One way to think about anchoring is that you are tricking your brain into thinking that you're just adding a few extra steps to an existing habit instead of what you're actually doing, which is creating a new habit from scratch, which is more difficult if you are not attaching it to an existing procedure or habit or routine. When you anchor successfully, basically, an old habit or routine becomes the cue for a new routine or behavior. So anchoring is a way to merge new behaviors with established routines to make behavior change easier. Okay, that wraps up today's short podcast. Today we talked about the challenges of making lifestyle changes for physical fitness, and specifically we discuss how, even though we often know how to make the changes that we want to make, many people often make the mistake of attempting too much change all at once or too quickly. We talked about the fact that to transition to a healthier lifestyle, you need to change your behaviors gradually and sequentially. Don't try to do everything all at once, or you'll face lots of mental friction and eventually you'll probably burn out. Instead, focus on just one change at a time, such as working out and then eating well and then tracking your progress. Building on your desired behavior changes over time will help you achieve your goals more effectively and more sustainably. Remember, your mind has a finite bandwidth for behavior change. You have a limited amount of fuel every day available to you for making changes. And the most effective way to establish a new, healthier behavior pattern is to focus your motivational bandwidth on just one change at a time. And then remember, to make behavior change even easier, try the technique of anchoring a new behavior to an existing one, such as doing a short workout while your coffee is brewing. This will make it much easier to adopt exercise or whatever habit you're trying to bring into your lifestyle and turn it into a sustainable habit. Give these tips and tricks a try, and you'll be able to make real, lasting lifestyle change. Thanks again for listening to the Friction Factor Fitness Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or found it valuable, please subscribe, please like, and please share with others who you think may find it helpful. Also, please check out my website, frictionfactorfitness.com, to sign up for my email newsletter, access my free fitness calculator tool, and download a free teaser of the first 3 chapters of my new book, The Friction Factor, The Busy Person's Guide to Sustainable Diet and Exercise, which is available wherever books are sold. Thanks again for listening, and stay tuned for future episodes.